80% of your pay goes to your brother, Mom said, her voice flat, arms folded like she was reading from a rulebook she'd written just for me. The other 20?
Mine.
Simple as that. The air in the kitchen felt heavy, like the walls were leaning in to hear my answer. I set my coffee cup down slowly, letting the silence stretch just enough for her to think she'd won. Then I stood, grabbed my jacket, and slipped one arm into the sleeve. Here's simpler, I said, meeting her eyes. I'm gone, and you'll never see a cent from me. Pay your own bills. Her face didn't crumble, not yet. It tightened, sharp as glass, the way the sky hardens just before a storm breaks. Behind her, my brother shifted in his chair, avoiding my gaze like a kid who'd been handed stolen candy. I didn't pack much, just the bag I'd left by the door weeks ago, in case this moment came. I'd known it would. Outside, the winter air bit my cheeks. The sound of my boots on the driveway was the only goodbye I gave them. By the time I reached my car, I could hear Mom's voice again, muffled now, the tone already shifting from command to panic. I didn't turn around. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that some people only understand silence when it's paired with absence. What happens when the hands that always took from you suddenly have nothing left to hold? I didn't answer her calls that night, or the next. The missed calls stacked in my notifications like bricks, each one another reminder that her control had cracks now. I'd driven 3 towns over before the adrenaline even faded. The motel I checked into smelled like bleach and burnt coffee, but it was mine. The key in my hand felt heavier than the one to my old room ever had. The first few days were quiet, almost too quiet. No footsteps outside my door. No shouted instructions from the kitchen. No reminder that my paycheck didn't really belong to me. But quiet has a way of turning into clarity. And in that clarity, I started doing math. 80% of my income, gone every month for over a year. Thousands siphoned without a single thank you. All under the banner of family duty. I had enough saved to survive, but I wanted more than survival now. I wanted independence, so loud they'd hear it from miles away. I picked up extra shifts at work, found a roommate who actually paid her half on time, opened a separate bank account Mom couldn't touch, one she'd never even know existed. Weeks passed. Then one morning, my phone buzzed with a message that was different from the rest. The electricity's been shut off.
Can you send money?
Just for now. I stared at it for a long time, remembering every time she told me I owed them, every time my own needs had been called selfish. Instead of replying, I took a screenshot, saved it in a folder I'd titled Receipts, and went back to work. Because I had a feeling this was only the beginning, and when the end came, I wanted to have every word, every plea documented. Sometimes the best revenge isn't cutting someone off all at once. It's letting them feel, drip by drip, what life is like without you. 2 weeks later, the calls turned into voicemails. First, Mom's voice was sharp, ordering me to stop acting childish. Then, it softened into pleading. By the 4th message, she was crying not because she missed me, but because the water had been shut off, too. I listened to each one once, saved them, and never called back. Every time my phone lit up with her name, it was like a little reminder that her grip on me had finally slipped. I'd built a new routine. Work, home, peace. No guilt hanging in the air. No one tallying up what I owed. The money I kept for myself wasn't just numbers in an account. It was proof I could stand on my own. Then my brother called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. His voice was quieter than I'd ever heard it. "They're talking about selling the house," he said. "It's bad, Marissa. She thought you'd step in. You always did before." That last part made me smile, not in joy, but in recognition. Yes, I always had. And that's why they believed I always would. I didn't tell him I'd already checked public records, that I knew the mortgage was behind, that the bank had already filed the first notice. Instead, I said, "I'm sorry you're going through that," and let the silence hang. He waited for me to offer something, money, advice, anything. I offered nothing. When we hung up, I sat there for a long time, the hum of my fridge filling the room. It wasn't satisfaction I felt. It was something quieter, a sense that, for the first time, they were living in a reality they'd created. And I knew this was only going to get worse for them. The next letter didn't come to my phone, it came to my mailbox. Plain white envelope. My mother's handwriting. No return address, but I didn't need one. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No, dear Marissa. No, love, Mom. Just, we're losing the house. I know you're angry, but this is your family. We need $19,400 to catch up. We'll pay you back. I read it twice, then folded it neatly and slid it into the same folder as the screenshots and voicemails. Receipts. Every last one. They thought numbers on paper might move me, that the weight of their need would finally drag me back in. But the truth was, I'd already decided what my answer would be months ago, standing in that kitchen when she claimed my paycheck like it was her birthright. Still, I couldn't ignore the idea forming in my head. If the house was going to be sold, someone would buy it. And if that someone was me, well, I could make sure they never saw the inside of it again. I didn't rush. I started researching. Foreclosure timelines, auction dates, bidding rules. Every detail that would make it possible to turn their power grab into my quiet victory. At work, I picked up overtime. Not because I needed the money immediately, but because I liked the thought of paying for this move entirely on my own, without touching a dime they'd ever had access to. By the end of the week, I had a plan.
Not to save them. Not to bail them out.
But to make sure the ending to this story belonged to me. I tucked the letter back into its envelope, sealed it with tape, and wrote one word on the front in black marker. Noted. Then I placed it at the bottom of my desk drawer, where it would stay until the day I'd need to remember exactly why I did what came next. The auction date was set for a Wednesday morning.
Public.
No sentimental speeches. Just numbers, paddles, and signatures. I arrived early, hair tucked into a low bun, dressed in a plain blazer that made me look like just another quiet bidder. Nobody glanced twice. When the property list flashed on the screen, my eyes locked on the address I knew by heart. The house where I'd poured my income into someone else's comfort. The kitchen where they'd told me, without flinching, that my work, my time, my money belonged to them. The bidding started low. I kept my hand still at first, letting others jump in, watching the price climb. When it hit a number that made half the room hesitate, I raised my paddle. One bid. The room shifted. A man across from me countered.
I didn't blink.
I raised again. And again. It became a rhythm, his hesitation, my certainty. Until finally, the auctioneer's voice cut the air. Sold. Gavel down. The papers were in my name before noon. No co-signers. No shared ownership. No loopholes that could ever put it back in their hands. I walked out into the sunlight, holding the folder, like it was the deed to my own freedom. Because it was. That night, I drove past the house. Lights on in the living room. Shadows moving behind the curtains. They had no idea yet, but they would. And when they did, I wasn't going to gloat. I wasn't going to yell. I was simply going to hand them the truth, the same way they once handed me my bags. It happened 3 days later. I was sipping coffee at my kitchen table when my phone buzzed, not with a call, but with a photo from an unknown number. It was the front door of the house. A bright red notice taped across it. Change of ownership. Vacate by month's end. Before I could even type a reply, Mom's name lit up my screen. I let it ring once, twice, then answered. "It's you," she said, no question in her voice, just accusation. "Yes," I replied calm. Her words tumbled over each other. "You can't do this, Marissa. We're your family. We took care of you." I almost laughed. "You took from me," I said. "There's a difference." Silence. Then the sound of her breathing, heavy and uneven. "What do you want?" she finally asked. It was the same question I'd asked myself in the weeks leading up to this. And the answer had never been money. It was this moment.
The shift.
Her realizing she no longer held anything over me. "I want you out," I said simply. End of the month. After that, the locks change. I could hear her choke back something, anger or tears, I couldn't tell. "You'll regret this," she said. But I knew better. Regret was waking up every day in that house, Working hours I'd never get back, just to hand my life over to people who saw me as a resource instead of a person. This was release. When I hung up, I saved the call recording to my receipts folder. Because one day, I might want to remember exactly how freedom sounded. The final week came faster than I expected. Every time I drove past the house, there were more boxes stacked on the porch, more furniture leaning against the rail. They were packing in silence now, no yelling, no music, no signs of the family that once filled every corner. On Thursday evening, I parked across the street and just watched. My brother carried out a lamp I recognized, one I'd bought years ago, back when my paychecks went straight into their comfort. My sister shut the trunk of her car with a sharp slam, refusing to look in my direction. Then Mom appeared in the doorway. She didn't step outside. She just stood there, holding a set of keys in her palm, staring at them like they were the last proof she belonged here. For a second, I wondered if she'd walk over. If she'd try one last time to bargain, to soften her voice, to rewrite the years in a single conversation. But she didn't. She just turned, disappeared inside, and came back with another box. By Friday night, the place was nearly empty. I walked through the front gate under the fading light, the crunch of gravel under my shoes loud in the stillness. The air smelled different, less lived in, more like possibility. I stood in the driveway, the same spot where she once told me how much of my life belonged to them, and thought about how strange it felt to reclaim a place without raising my voice, without lifting a hand. Tomorrow the locks would change. And when they did, this house, and everything it represented, would finally be mine alone. Saturday morning broke clear and cold, the kind of air that wakes every nerve in your body. The locksmith arrived right on time, his van humming in the driveway. I stood on the porch as he worked, each metallic click a chapter closing. When the last lock turned, he handed me the keys, smooth, cool, and heavier than they should have been. Not just metal.
History.
Inside, the house felt hollow. The echoes were different now, not heavy with arguments or demands, but light, almost clean. I walked through each room, letting my hand skim over the walls. In the kitchen, I paused. This was where she'd stood, arms folded, dictating exactly how my paycheck would be carved up for everyone but me. Now, there was no one here to claim my work, my time, my life. On the counter, I placed a single envelope. Inside was a copy of the deed, my name in bold, black ink. On the front of the envelope, I wrote one line. "The bills are yours now." No signature. No explanation. I stepped outside, locked the door behind me, and let the keys rest in my palm for just a second longer before sliding them into my pocket. The sun was warm on my face as I walked down the driveway, the same driveway where I'd once left with nothing. Only this time, I wasn't leaving. I was arriving at a life that was finally, entirely mine. This story is a reminder that sometimes the most powerful revenge is simply taking back control of your own life. When people believe your time, money, and energy belong to them, walking away can feel impossible, but it's the first step to freedom. Marissa didn't scream, beg, or try to prove her worth. She removed herself from the cycle, built her independence in silence, and let those who took from her feel the weight of their own choices. Buying the house wasn't about possession, it was about turning the very place they used to control her into a symbol of her independence. It showed that revenge doesn't have to be loud or cruel. It can be quiet, legal, and absolute. In the end, she didn't need their approval or even their understanding. She needed her life back, and she claimed it. If you've ever been used, underestimated, or told you owe someone who only takes from you, remember, your boundaries are not selfish. Your success doesn't need their permission. And sometimes, the most poetic justice is standing exactly where they once told you you didn't belong and staying there on your own terms.